So our pillars are music, culture, innovation. And one of the things two of the things that we're trying to do is increase music tourism here in the region, as well as improve music industry standards. So Emirates Music Summit, we have a series of educational, motivational events that's designed to provoke thought leadership in the music industry. We bring together artists, creatives, and entrepreneurs in the global music industry to learn, inspire, and grow. We aim to empower and educate those that shape the music industry locally, regionally, and internationally.
So the mission statement or the mission and vision of the Emirates Music Summit is to do exactly what we're seeing with the leadership of the UAE in terms of making this a #1 destination in technology, innovation, engineering. And today we want to do it with Emirates Music Summit as a platform that supports, networks, and helps collaborate different fields within the music industry together. And towards the next 50 years, how can we make this place, Dubai and the UAE, the #1 destination for music, for talent, for entrepreneurship as we move forward. So this is a summit we want to continue to do on a biannual basis and have the best from the leadership teams within the music ecosystem, as well as the youth involved. We spoke about the youth in the seminar that was attended by Her Excellency Noor Al-Kabi. It's the same thing over here. We want a platform that unites everyone from youth to seniors to everyone in between, sharing experiences, sharing connections, sharing relationships, and really focusing on how to make this the center of attraction when it comes to music and entertainment. We're blessed with over 200 nationalities over here. We're blessed with some of the top institutions. We have the infrastructure. We have the bright minds. And we're here to help connect the dots. So I want to make an introduction to this amazing panel. We've got Saeed from the national newspaper. We've got Bill Bragan from New York University, toured the whole UAE and has landed over here on WCEE. We've got Michael from AdMind, in charge of White, Iris, and many other big venues in the UAE. And finally, we got Jason over here, who is leading us with Flash Entertainment, one of the biggest venues in charge of multiple government and private venues in the UAE. And finally, of course, you got yours truly, Albert Carter, co-founder, producer, singer, entrepreneur, audio swim expert.
I think if I was to sing, anybody would leave, everybody would leave.
All right, well, I'll leave this with you guys. Enjoy the session. We'll see.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to be here. And I guess let's get started. You know, as a journalist, quickly, I have to start with the most thing that's in the news right now. Okay, and the thing that we're hearing right now in the news, it is news. It was announced yesterday. It is the government announcing the shift of the working week. You know, from Monday to Friday. So now the weekends. The new ones beginning next year is Saturday, Sunday. For many people who are from abroad, this is a normal thing. For here, it's kind of revolutionary. Now, while we're talking about what does that mean, for the Friday brunch and everything, I think the most important question perhaps, right? Let's think about this, right? What does this mean for music touring, right? Because three of you here, okay, are heavily involved, in bringing artists to the region. Bill, as the head of NYU Abu Dhabi Arts Center, Mike, working for some of the biggest clubs, in the UAE. Jason, Flash is one of the biggest companies of the UAE concert scene, responsible. I mean, I wrote an article about this the other day about how many F1 concerts you guys brought, and that's 41. Yeah. And it'll be 45 by the end of this week. Yeah. This weekend. So now. This means the weekend has changed. Does that make it more complicated for you in terms of getting artists? Because normally the best time to play, if you're an artist, is the weekends. The UAE before had the added option of you can be playing on a Friday and then going off to Europe and what have you and continuing, your tour. But now you are fighting with the rest of the world in getting an artist to perform in basically prime time, which is the Friday and Saturday. So I guess, Jason, I'll chat with you first because, because with Flash, you know all about scheduling and how important that is. do you see an opportunity in this shift, or do you see also, or is it more complications, and or something in the middle?
I think for me, the easiest thing is negotiating with the agents.
Right.
Because now, normally my work week is Sunday to Thursday, but because we're dealing with LA, Europe, and anywhere in between, I still have to work on the Friday. And then we still have to respond on the Friday. So in terms of communication, I think it's going to get a lot easier to negotiate deals and I think Michael brought up a great point earlier, is that when we're sending money and wiring funds in a deposit for artists, now we have the added value that Friday the money could get to them, because as opposed to where we'd have to wait till Sunday or Monday for the money to clear in the bank and then receive it to them on Monday. So I think the conversations and the communications are going to get a lot easier. The problem now is when we're looking at an artist, we're not only bringing the artist here to do a one-off show for Abu Dhabi. We're thinking about if the artists are playing in Europe, or if they're on their way to South Africa or anywhere in Asia, we're looking at linking up that routing to make the show cost effective for the artist and something that's financially viable. So the fact that now we have to compete with the rest of the world for the primetime slots, which is the Saturday and potentially the Sunday, and even if we look at the Friday, you're still competing with the rest of Europe, the rest of Asia, and South Africa and Australia. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, because it's effective for an artist to bulk their shows to get the most bang out of their money. But let's see. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I think from a communication standpoint, I'm all for it. But from a touring standpoint, I think there might be a bit of difficulties getting the shows done in a timely manner, and then on top of it, competing with the other touring legs is going to be a challenge. So, so with you, Jason, you're dealing with shows in an arena. Yes.
But a lot of the time, with you, Michael, you're dealing with shows at not clubs, super clubs. I mean, they're still massive clubs. Your company, ADD Mine, is going to open tomorrow, White Abu Dhabi, which is a massive place, and for a big place like that, you need massive artists. Yeah. So Jason described that like on a big pop star level, arena tour level. Does this move, the changing of the week, does that kind of affect you in terms of getting high voltage club acts to come to your place?
Yeah, so with the shift of the weekend, like Jason said, it's now trying to fight with the rest of Europe to get an open date, whereas before, it would be like, right, we'll do a Thursday and a Friday, which would then leave a Saturday open for them to jump on to another European country or, Australia or wherever. I think with the shift of the weekend, with the rest of the Middle East still, I believe Qatar is still, Thursday and Friday, Friday, Saturday. It can work in our favor as well to then sell a show, for instance, to somebody else who has that alternate weekend, and then we then take a Friday and Saturday. So it can go both ways in terms of you can still get a show by putting a Thursday elsewhere and then doing a Friday and Saturday here. But then also you have the thing where you're competing for that Friday and Saturday with the rest of the world. It's going to simplify a lot of things in terms of communication with the agents, just exactly what Jason was saying. And it will save a lot of red ink on contracts when they're asking for money and by a certain time. So now that our weekends are in line or in synergy with the rest of the world, I think it's going to simplify that whole banking process and approvals on artwork. It will speed things up.
Bill, you see something in this as well? Because as well, as the art center, you have a very extensive music program that runs throughout the year, and these are artists. They're not pop stars per se, but these are popular artists, and they're roadhounds. The artists that you bring down here. They're the world music scene or the experimental music scene is thriving all the time. And on top of that, the festival has its own, the art center has its own in-house music festival, the Barzakh Festival, which is multi-day, nearly a dozen acts. So do you see as well complications, interesting conversations to be had in the future with this shift?
Yeah, well, I think our model is a little bit different. We're not necessarily just doing one-offs. We generally bring artists on a residency basis. So over the course of, and when an artist comes, they're generally coming for closer to a week so that they can be part of university classes. They can do workshops and master classes and career chats. So there's been a lot of talk in the performing arts about slow touring, partially as a response to COVID, partially as a response to the environment. And so within our model, we often have people for a much longer period of time. It's definitely been our advantage to say, you'll come here on a Sunday, you'll be here Sunday, we'll have you play on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night, and then Friday you'll get the weekend in 2 other markets. And so that is something that we're going to lose, that ability, like the other guys are talking about. We also have, matinees or school performances or things like that, workshops that we had planned for a Friday morning that was supposed to be a weekend day, and now it's a work day and a school day. So I think in the first year there's going to be a lot of adjustment. I think once we get into the 22-23 season, starting in September, we'll be able to adapt. But I think we've also made a point of trying to break out of another gig every day in another city, and we want people to sit down in Abu Dhabi and get to know our community and get to really benefit the community. So it plays out in a slightly different way for us.
Absolutely. And let's keep it newsy, right? Because today as well, not long ago, we had, there was a landmark presentation, at the vision stage about Her Excellency Noor Al-Kabi, Minister of Youth and Culture, talking about the launch of the creative strategy for the creative and culture industry. Now, Albert, with Emirates Music Summit, you have been kind of working in terms of getting that acknowledgement about the importance, of the creative industry, of the culture industry. I mean, you've been there, you've seen the launch, and you read the material. What is your view on this? Is this a jumping point? Is this a starting point?
Yeah, I think it's a turning point, actually, and with more focus being on the creative sector, specifically for us, music. Like I said in the beginning of it, our pillars are music, culture, and innovation. And everything that they're talking about in the new strategy is what we've been pushing for. So for us, it just helps us. It highlights what we've been trying to do, and it also highlights the local creative and music scene. So it's great.
Bill, as yourself and as NYU, you have been regularly consulting, with the ministry on various things, So I know you were there. I know we spoke about this particular session with interest over a week ago. So what did you see from that, from that strategy and from your involvement in consultation in terms of where are you, does it kind of give you, is it meant to give confidence? Is it meant to motivate us, to drive us? What do you think is the goal from this?
Well, I think that one of the things when I look at a session like today and about the 10-year plan is it really lays out the goals and it lays out the priorities, right? The idea that arts and culture, creative industries are set to become 10% of the economy. It really puts it on a pedestal when there has been historically people who've been resistant to entering the creative industries as a career path. Now from the very highest levels of governments, the government is saying, this is important to the UAE. We want to invest in this. We want to really look at things like intellectual property. We want to look at sustainability. We want to look at the enabling environment and the regulations. And so it sort of puts all of those things on the table that can really help to grow the ecosystem. It's been something we've been really thinking a lot about with the Arts Center as we are trying to train local artists, emerging artists, students, as well as artists just from the community, and giving them a chance to not only find their own voice as an artist, but then also go abroad and take the stories and the narratives of the UAE, and as I talked about today, have it become a cultural export. And I think all of the priorities that were laid out today, as well as some of the conversations like Pradeep Sharma made the point yesterday about moving beyond asking artists to do things for free, right? And really saying we value our artists and we want to invest in the artists, and this is a profession that we want to really elevate. I think this is a really fantastic transformation.
And, Her Excellency Minister Al-Kabi was talking about how this, in a way, the strategy was kind of triggered by the pandemic in a sense, because it's the end result of an 18-month consultation period, and also it comes on top, on other measures to help the creative industry to kind of weather the storm of the pandemic. And Jason and Michael, we spoke about some of the measures some of the things we don't even know about. But you guys, as venue operators who work in venues, who do tours, there are some things that the government kind of did to alleviate your pressures, right? You're talking about the temporary stay, or the waiver of performance fees. Can you just tell us a little bit about this? Because I think many people don't even know about some of the behind the scenes so-called support the government kind of gave you, and what does it mean?
Yeah. In regards to the ticketing tax, which is for us, the concert business is a really slim margin, and anything could really deviate your plans and make it from a profitable show to a negative return really quickly. And the ticketing tax, when it was introduced, was one of those things that really was a cost prohibitive thing for us to absorb as promoters, because again, we're dealing with really slim margins of profit, and it really cost us a lot of money. So when they did, during the pandemic, looked at it and say, we understand this might be a thing that a lot of promoters, independent promoters that aren't a part of the government, can absorb. What we'll do is we'll essentially put a pause on this for now, which essentially gave us a break as well, because then when concerts came back, now we're looking at reinvesting that money back into the community. We've developed a regional artist spotlight program, which amplifies the local and regional artist's voice, and we're now able to use that money and invest it in a meaningful way. So things like this, where the government gives us a break and gives us the opportunity to reinvest the money back into the community, is always a good thing. And the pandemic definitely allowed us to, like you said, we're venue operators, we're concert promoters, and we're an agency all in one. We do a bunch of events that spans from government to live performances. And when the pandemic hit, we had to shift our mindset from, okay, we can't do physical live events, and what next can we do? And this is where the Regional Artist Spotlight was born. And then we did the Flash Live online live stream of all local UAE artists. So it gave us the ability, not only from the ticketing tax break, but also the pandemic, gave us the ability to relook at our business and say, what is the most important thing about our business? It's not about bringing in international artists, because Flash's desire is the legacy of Flash's, what happens after Flash leaves. And we would like to say, look, these communities that exist here is now amplified, it now has the resource, it now has the funding, it now has the necessary tools and skill set to develop beyond us. And that's what we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to do. So any government assistance, whether it be ticket tax break, whether it be incentivizing us to build the community further, is always welcomed for us.
Michael, you also spoke about, because there's ticketing tax, but there's also is it performance tax or or performance fee? What's the word exactly?
So what it is with all venues, any sort of entertainer, be it a DJ, a dancer, an acrobat, a performer, they all need to have a performance license. Now, within the stimulus package, the fees were currently exempt, I believe, until the end of the year. So, of course, that's been a huge help for all the venues in terms of getting back on their feet, not having to sort of factor in those costs. Sometimes these costs could reach up to about 50,000 dirhams per month.
I mean, I wonder, because because there's the actual fee. It's money. You don't sneeze at that money. It's money, right? So does that mean now that it's kind of been temporarily delayed, you have more freedom in perhaps taking a risk on an artist? Because before, because before, from what I understand, that fee is just for you to get on the decks.
Yeah, that's correct.
Let alone your performance fee, right? So now, I would think if I didn't have a lot of money, I'm just getting an artist where I can just get my money back. Yeah. I don't care how, So I'm thinking now, do you feel now you have more of a space, room to breathe, to actually take a punt on an artist?
I mean, with the exemption of the fees, you can look to put on more entertainment in one night. More entertainment means more attraction for people to come to the venue, more things for people to see and be entertained by. There's a lot of talent that's within the country, and I think, one thing that COVID has taught us, that when we didn't have access to the external talent, was that what talent was actually available in the country. And with the exemption of the fees, you don't have to worry about, hey, I'm going to try this person, try that person. You're able to give everybody a shot without having the fees behind it. I think hopefully maybe it'll get extended in the long run. I think it will really, really help. But yeah, definitely it allowed us to try more different talents and different people.
And Bill, see, but I mean, this is an indication, a great indication, I guess, of how the government is agile enough to respond to the needs, of the music community, of the music industry. What is, and before that, you came here from a, very established scene in the U.S., New York, where there was a very, very expansive framework on policy regarding music promotions, events, and everything. What are some of the things that you see here that's more needed in terms of policy, in terms of move, from government to kind of alleviate, or to kind of, or either alleviate or to push or give you guys the push that you need?
I think one of the things that I really look at is the need for sort of a low and middle scale in the sector. I think one of the things that everybody's talking about is that COVID pointed out the need to really focus on homegrown talent, and the only way for homegrown talent to develop is to develop in public. You need to play and develop a following, you need to learn how to talk to an audience, you need to learn how to structure your set, and the only way to do that is in front of an audience, and you get better and better and better. So what the UAE has often been global superstars or cover bands doing songs by global superstars, yes. And everybody in between hasn't really had a place to play. So I think as you're looking at, for example, the impact of these event licenses, if all of a sudden you can have 2 or 3 artists on a bill, and you can have opening acts, middle level attractions, you can have people work their way up the hierarchy, they develop their artistry, they develop their fan bases, and they become headliners here, and then they've done their 10,000 hours. They're ready to tour internationally and bring the UAE. There was so much talk this morning about creatives as a cultural export, and I think we need to really enable our artists to be able to compete on a global scale.
Is it a case of more venues that's needed, or is it venues, is it more events, or is it more event organizers being brave enough to say, you know what, I want to invest, or I want to give you my stage?
I think it's all of those things. I think there are actually a lot of venues in this town. Every hotel has multiple bars with multiple venues, and they're mostly filled with cover bands. So if some of those could be repurposed, that actually can go a long way. I think if the cost of taking a chance on an emerging artist goes away, that really helps. I had a conversation at dinner last night with a conference, and we were talking about which comes first, supply or demand. And one of the things we talked about is if you create more supply, then the demand sometimes follows. It's counterintuitive. But nobody knew that they wanted Instagram or TikTok. The platforms were created, and then people gravitated to it, and they became major powerhouses. I think that's what we need to see with talent as well. If there's an abundance of talent, the audiences will grow to fill in because they will have created the demand and the need.
One of the last things, literally, I think, one of the last events that happened in the UAE the day before, we kind of had to, where live events ceased, was essentially the Emirates Music Summit, Albert. I remember that day because I went home and it looks like I never left the house for a year after that. So, yeah, and, and just leading off what Bill was saying, Emirates Music Summit, was a hub of local artists, coming in. So, and so now you're hearing, what Bill is saying about, there's venues, that artists can play. But then again, you're very passionate about artist development.
Right.
The question is, okay, so if there are venues, is there artists, within the UAE that are ready to play? And if they are, and we don't know about that, is it because, they're working it wrong? They're kind of, they need more self-knowledge?
Well, it's a combination of things. Number one, artists need to build authentic fan bases. Online doesn't necessarily translate into real world. So a person can have 1 million followers online, and if that person can't fill a venue with 500 people, it doesn't make business sense for a venue to hire them, right? So what we want to do is help them cultivate real fan bases with what you guys are ultimately doing, especially with the festival that you guys highlight local artists. Bill, you're also trying to engage the local community by teaching through business development. So it's a combination of things that they need. What I see here is easy to be a big fish in a small pond, right? So artists can think that they are superstar level because everybody knows them here, but that's only in Dubai. When you go to Abu Dhabi, they might not have a fan base. So how economically viable is that for an artist or a venue, realistically? So it's just about, as you stated before, it's about knowledge and developing that sense of understanding of what it is to be in the music business on a serious note, what it is to travel, what it is to tour, because we're working currently with an international artist here. He actually was on the panel before, but he's toured the UAE, but he has an established fan base, and he's selling out every night. So how do you build a local or regional musician to that level of superstardom to kind of get them there? And that's what we aim to do.
Because the thing is, like, I bet you get these things all the time, Jason and Michael. Because you guys are working, in the biggest venues in town. Is there a sense of, people are coming to you saying, I want to play in your venue, give me a shot, but then you do the work, but then you realize, they're not even ready yet. So what's your advice? Because for them to play at the Do Arena, at Etihad Park now, is the promised land. To play, to spin the decks, at white Abu Dhabi, white Dubai, is it. So, what advice to kind of give artists who kind of want to get there?
Yeah, that's for me. I think let's go back to the question that you asked about what's needed. I really don't think the answer is more venues. Personally, I think we need to build a strong scene and a community. That there's more record labels, there's more publishers, there's more producers, there's more songwriters, there's more artists. I think we got to focus on that first. And with Flash, we have a two-part system for artists coming into our ecosystem and then ultimately playing the Do Arena. We have the emerging talent competition where any artist from zero could say, I want to sing, I think I could sing. They could go into a competition model and then perform, and then the winner of that program then gets the opportunity to work with songwriters, record labels, whatever it may be that will help them build their skill sets. And then from there, we amplify their music through the Regional Artist Spotlight. But to get to the Regional Artist Spotlight, you'd have to release 4 songs, you'd have to at least 4 music videos, and you have to show that you've been developing your craft for at least a year. And then we amplify their voice through Regional Artist Spotlight, and then from there, we take them to open for an international artist. So for us, it's really being with them from zero all the way to the end. And the next thing that we're looking at is ultimately having a headline Arab festival with all Arab talent from GCC and the world abroad. So that's the goal. So I really don't think it's more venues. It's really helping the community get the tools they need to get from zero to international status, where we're, like you said, we're exporting talent from UAE to the rest of the world. And the next thing we're also looking at is where we can have students from NYU come in and work with our production team, learn to produce events and concerts, because venues will always be there and venues will always exist, especially in UAE. Like you said, there's tons of venues that could be repurposed, utilized for whatever purpose we need it to be. But right now, I think the focus is building the community, and I love what Her Excellency Noor Al-Kabi is doing, because she's really developing the ecosystem that would allow somebody to see the roadmap from zero to a career. And that's my opinion on that. Yeah.
Bill, you wanted to say something about that?
Yeah, I think one of the other things that he sparked was that Her Excellency said this morning, which is really looking at kind of overall what are the needs within the community. And I think creating that magnet and the hub where artists can kind of interact is really key. The changes in the creative visas and the freelance visas, I think that is going to be incredibly important, so that people can come here and actually work as artists and really develop and make that the focus of what they do and not have to get saddled with as much focus on their day job. And then the other thing that I'm really interested in seeing is what might happen around housing, in artist housing, in cheap housing. There's constantly new developments here. So if real estate developers, as they build a new development and they have old developments that people are moving out of, if those become affordable housing for artists, that's the other thing that then creates a concentration, and that's why you get music centers. That's why Berlin became a music capital, because there were cheap squats, or Williamsburg, or Bushwick, or London. It's the concentration of people and creatives and workspaces,
and that's
right?
an investment. I mean, that's an investment.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's tangible and non-tangible. It'll get more people to come to the city.
And then all of the businesses businesses that then pop up to support, cafes and bars and instrument supply stores and music and restaurants. All of that spreads out because you've created a creative hub.
Amazing. And we literally have 7 seconds to go, so we're going to finishing just on time. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Bill, Michael, Jason, and Albert. Thank you.